Want to grow mint now, do ya? Minty fresh. Now, mint is a very popular herb. It's a perennial, and it is also very popular. It has often been said that mint is one of the hardest plants to kill, and I have to admit it is a tough plant, and that makes it very, very, very useful for around the garden, especially in places where perhaps other things don't particularly like to grow. However, if you want it to be at its best, you've really got to give it the best. 9 times out of 10 you want to grow this in a raised bed, because if you put it in the ground you might find yourself in a situation where it just runs like mad and you can't get rid of it. Now, there's literally over 200 types of mint, so you know there's all different types. I mean, this particular one here I got is from the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, and it's very, very good for a mint tea that they make. It's got a lovely, lovely flavour. It's not the strongest mint in the world, but it is very nice. I also have some more potent, more typical mints over there in the raised beds, and that one is very, very prolific. And what I find with mint is if you just keep cutting off that top growth and keep getting them top shoots, then it will just bunch up, and you'll have loads more soft green foliage, because basically the more you harvest with this, the better. What can happen with mint is if you don't harvest it, it will go to flower, which is not a terrible problem, of course, because you can get beneficial insects attracted to the flowers. But really, the minute it gets too big, it can get woody, and it's not really at its best for harvesting. Now, if your plants do get woody and large like that, don't worry too much, because what you can do is you can just chop it down to the floor and it will come back again just as strong as it used to before. It's very, very difficult to kill. One of the things I will mention about mint, which I have discovered over the years though, if you put it in one position, usually what happens is it will grow well for a couple of seasons, and then it will be a situation of diminishing returns. And I think what mint does naturally, when you look at it, it spreads with these runners, these root runners, and it will exhaust all of the nutrients in the ground which it is particularly hungry for, and then move on. So, you know, really with mint you're going to have to fertilise if you want to keep it at its best. So if you're growing it in a raised bed, try to regenerate it, you know, with fertiliser. And what I would say is perhaps after every 3 and 4 years, dig out that mass of roots, separate them out, new compost, and then you should get a new flush straight away after that. You know, it's doing its best when it feels it's got room to grow, you know. Now, if you simply just take a shoot of mint, just literally take a cutting and put it in water, it will root within a few days. I mean, it's so easy to propagate. For this reason, it's very, very rare anyone would grow this from seed. You know, you just don't have to. Find a mint that you like the smell of, you like the aroma, and just propagate it or take cuttings, and that should be fine for you. But you know, I would stress, I do grow it in the ground. This one, I can keep on top of it. And what I particularly like about this one is it's particularly good for beneficial insects when this flowers. It's a part of a permaculture system here I've got developing, so I'm not too worried about that. But really, you want to grow it in a pot or in a container. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to dig up an old exhausted patch of very prolific mint, and I'm going to show you the root runners. I'm going to dig some of them up, and I'm going to put them in a new raised bed system, just to show you the system and show you how quickly it takes for the new plants to pop up from them root runners. So that'll be a good one for you if you're looking to multiply the amount of mint that you've got. If you do want to have larger areas of mint, and you have a very large area, and at the end of the day you're not that bothered because in the end you've got so much ground to cover that you're not that bothered about things running amok, because if something useful isn't going to run amok, then something that isn't useful will run amok. And in them sort of situations, like an extensive forest system, food forest, then, you know, plant it in the ground and just let it go, just let it run. And, you know, places like around chicken coops, the aroma does deter pests, things like rats. So the more of that stuff you've got growing around the edge of maybe a chicken enclosure, that's very good. I've also heard that for chickens it's good for their digestion if they have a little bit of mint in their diet, which they will peck at. But you know, you can't really go that far wrong with mint. And like this one, for instance, this has got a bit more of a sweeter aroma. It is good in the teas, and you know, you can use this in things like tzatziki or cool yogurt dips. Us Greeks, we like our tzatziki, and we also put this in our meatball mix, and it's got adds a little bit of an extra kick to it. But what I would say, you know, there's something about the flavour of mint. It's no surprise that it's used in toothpaste and things like that. It's got a real association with freshness. So, you know, you've really, a garden without mint, if you're into food and cooking, you know, you've just got to have mint. And of course, if you like mojitos as well, like my wife, you know, likes a cocktail, really good in that as well. And also for drinks, really easy to infuse into water and teas. What I usually do is I have a bedtime tea with lemon balm, and I will have a bit of mint in that as well. So a bit of mint tea after dinner tea, really good. It really has few problems, mint. I've never really seen any deer eating it or anything like that. You can get a rust, an orange spot on the mint, and usually when you get that, you really need to start again, get rid of them plants, because that mint rust will stay in the ground for 3 years. So keep an eye on your plants, and if they look like they've got these rusty spots, then perhaps it's time to start again in a pot and keep mint out of the ground for a little while. You know, it's really resilient. It's really easy to grow. It doesn't like to dry out too much, but really if you stick to them fundamentals, it can even put up with part shade. You know, full sun is best, but part shade it's fine in a forest garden. This one's growing in very dabbled shade, so it's not that much sunlight comes through here at all, and it's doing very well. So I'm going to show you now taking the root runners and propagating them on. Now here I already have a really successful raised bed just for mint, but what I'm going to do today is extend it just by simply getting another bit of 4 bits of 6x2 screwed together, and what we're going to do is we're going to place that down there, because this part of the sort of edge of the forest garden, it's part shade and it's very dry. But if we raise it up and put some good soil in there, we can make use out of the area, because mint will pretty much survive anywhere. What I'm going to do is there's a little bit of really nice, really strong smelling mint that has escaped along the edge of a flower bed, and I've been trying to get rid of it for a while. So I'm going to weed out them nodes and root nodules, and I'm going to scatter them about, and then we're going to water them in, and we're going to come back to this and we're going to see how it's doing. Ultimately we want to end up with something like this, and this is a lovely strong smelling mint as well. So let's give it a go. Right, so what you're aiming for is a sort of 2 inches, 1.5 inches from the top. Really we want, you know, 1.5 inches on top of that, a little bit of a watering recess, and we're going to go and pick these little bits of mint root now. I mean, what you can do, I didn't want to destroy this one too much, but what you can do, if I just pull one of these, usually what happens is, see what I mean? I mean, you know, look at that. I mean, that's got a fair old roots, few roots. If I just want to just sort of like tamp that off now, you know, and if you sort of submerge one of them down into there, try and get rid of all the lumps and bumps really, and then what I'm going to do is sort of submerge that with another 1.5 inches of soil over it, and then if you get enough root nodules and you lay them down horizontally, then that should be a carpet within no time. Right, so look, you see what I mean? You're trying to get as many of these as possible now, and we're going to go through here and try and retrieve as much of this as we can. There we are, look, there's a horizontal runner. Oh, so we want to lay that down in there, and that. This is the one we want though, look, this one running right there. That's what we want. So you see what I mean? You can see why it goes mad, this stuff. So look at that, we want to lay that in our box, alright? Right, so I'm sure you'll agree, that is a fair old yield of root runners. and that's perfect for starting off our new box. So all we've got to do now is just lay them in and just try and cover as much as possible. And as you can see, I've got way too much. I mean, you know, this is way excessive, but it just means we'll get there a little bit quicker. But you saw how poor and shallow that soil was, so it makes you realise if you start with runners like this, it's going to be a matter of, you know, weeks before you get a lush carpet of mint coming up, you know. That's probably enough, I reckon. I don't want to take the mick. And that'll probably do us. Right, I've covered it over, so we'll give it a good water and we're good to go. Right, we'll be coming back to this and we'll see how it gets on. So there's just the beginnings of some of them starting to pop up. It's been about a week, so already, you know, they're starting to come up. And 6 weeks later, you'll have something like this. So there you have it. Mint. Not a lot to grow in the stuff. It's a great classic herb you've got to have in the garden and in the kitchen. It's easy to grow, smells great. Get out there and grow some.